All right. Hello, everybody. Arya Masudi, Jerry Kutz, and Bob Ferranti at Seminoles Sidelines. We are so excited to have you in a new graphics package that looks pretty darn cool, if I say so myself. And we've got a lot of news to get to today on our Seminoles Sidelines, a weekly show. Roster updates, transfers, meeting with the media earlier this morning. And then how about a big win for men's hoops on the road at Notre Dame in a game that they led wire to wire, started hot, and finished hot, holding off Notre Dame in South Bend at Purcell Pavilion. It's a hard place for FSU to win games. And so in what has otherwise been a struggle this season, maybe a little bit of a hallmark for the Noles on that night in Indiana. So we've got a lot to get to. Jerry, Bob, thanks for being here. And we appreciate those of you listening to this podcast, whether that be on Apple, on Spotify, on Google, iHeart, wherever you get it. And, of course, we're live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And, of course, ask your questions. We'll try and put them out here on the show in front and try and interact with you as well. You can listen to this on demand. And, of course, please make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube page. And please subscribe to the Osceola.com. No better time than right now to subscribe to our website. We've got all the news, off-season. The hype is building in Tallahassee. And, of course, we've got basketball, baseball, softball coverage coming your way all year long. So without further ado, let's chat about this football team. We got some roster updates today. I see if you guys saw some New Jersey numbers, Akeem Dent getting number one, moving to the number one column this time of year, Bob. It's a lot of fun to kind of see the different heights and weights, the updates in the weight room, and the newcomers getting on campus and seeing exactly what numbers they will wear, and of course what their height and weights are.
Yeah, I saw somebody on the message board said Lucas Simmons 6'8", 307. That's pretty darn good, right? So yeah, it's good to see these are just the early enrollees having their jersey numbers, height, weight, and eligibility. Two really notable, I think, transactional pieces of information here. Dimitri Emmanuel, who we thought was a redshirt senior in 2022, is going to be back in 2023. We've confirmed that through FSU Sports Information. And also Caden Lyles, who we thought might come back, might be playing in 2023. As of now, he is not on the roster. So we'll check in with that and kind of get some more information in the coming days. But yeah, good to see these heights, weights, jersey numbers. It's kind of feeling like we're getting a little bit closer to spring football, even though we're still, good 6 weeks away.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of these numbers right now for the newcomers, at least. Transfer Jaheim Bell will wear number 6. He's listed at 6'3", 230 pounds. Of course, great tight end that we got from South Carolina. Hakeem Williams, everybody's been hyped up. He's officially listed at 6'2", 210 pounds. He'll wear number 8. I know there was a lot of different numbers. Some people had him at 6'3", some had him at 6'4". Hakeem comes in at 6'2", 210. And will wear number 8. Quarterback Brock Glenn, 6'2", 205, 10 pounds heavier than listed for his weight than he was going into his senior year. So continuing to put on that weight, he'll wear number 11. Darrell Jackson, number 14, 6'6", 315 pounds. And so that's interesting that a transfer from Miami. Quindarius Jones will wear number 16. He's coming in at 6'2", 185. He's a safety that we got out of the high school ranks. And then Gilbert Edmond, transfer from South Carolina, 6'4", 245. And then a couple more. Vandravius Jacobs will wear number 20. He's listed at 6 feet, 165 pounds. Edge Jaden Jones from the junior college ranks, he'll wear number 22 and is listed at 6'5", 230. Duece Cypress, Ventrell Cypress will wear Michael Jordan's number, 23. 6 foot, 175 pounds. The transfer from Virginia, one of the best transfers in the market, top 5. Of course, the Noles had the number 1 transfer portal rankings and class this season. KJ Kirkland will wear number 24. He's listed at 6'1", 186. DeMarco Ward, number 31, listed at 6'1", 212. Lamont Green, friend of Jerry Kutz's, Lamont Green Sr., son of Lamont Green Sr., he will be 6'3", 206 pounds, listed and wear number 45 in his first year in Tallahassee. Braden Fisk, number 55, 6'5", 300. Jeremiah Byers will wear 63, 6'4", 324 pounds. Casey Roddick wore 70, 6'4", 310 pounds. Keandre Jones will get number 75, 6'3", 335 pounds. And then Lucas Simmons, as Bob mentioned, 6'8", 307 pounds as a freshman, will get number 79. And how about this, guys? Kyle Morlock, 6'6", 230 pounds, the tight end from Shorter College. Nothing short about him. Will wear number 84. And so just ran through pretty much the entire newcomer list. What stands out? Seems like a lot of guys that are athletically college ready to be able to get on that football field early.
Yeah, the one surprise to me on the smallish side was Boots. Listed at 207 pounds. That was surprising to me. What was it to you, Bob?
Yeah, I mean, we've interviewed him, so we've stood next to him. He doesn't look small by any means. I think he's got a body frame that you think he'll add some weight. Yeah, I mean, we're excited about this class. We'll kind of see how they develop on the field this spring. But between the high school signees, the transfer portal guys, we feel like there's some impactful guys there, going into 2023 for sure.
Yeah, I'm excited too to see guys about some of these transfer prospects, because I think in this day and age, that's going to be what's important, right? For a lot of people is the transfer portal. And that's kind of the whole point, is to have guys who are college ready because they've been in college to come in and kind of bridge that gap to the nation's elite. And I think FSU's done a good job of that over the last couple of years. Jerry, how do you feel like Florida State's used that transfer portal to be able to accelerate some of the progress that they've made?
I think it's like free agency in the NFL. You rely upon your draft. This has been said before, but high school signings is your draft. And usually it takes a year or two for those guys to develop, whereas with free agency in the NFL, you can bring in guys right away I call it the big eraser. If you have a mistake in a recruiting class, say the offensive line, as an example, a couple of kids don't develop the way that you expected them to, and a couple who are developing get hurt. In college sports 5 years ago, you're dead in the water. There really wasn't anything you could do. Pro team could go out and pick up a free agent. In college, you had to go back into the high school ranks and try to get a kid that could play right away, or go to the junior college ranks, which is dubious on offensive line. And so I just think the transfer portal allows you to fix, a gap in your roster that sometimes is through no fault of your own. You get a couple injuries at a position, and now you can fix it. And that's been huge to me.
Bob, I mean, when you look at the way that FSU has been able to use that transfer portal and getting some key guys on the D-line especially, right? They've gone to, Jermaine Johnson, one and done. Jared Verse could have been one and done. I think everyone's thankful he's coming back for selfish reasons. But now you look at where the Noles are trying to plug some holes. It seems like it's in the trenches more so than not trying to make a difference. Jackson's going to be – I think people are not valuing what Jackson will mean to that D-line, especially now that Lovett's coming back too. The Seminoles arguably have a Clemson-level D-line in terms of interiorly. So that's exciting to me, and it feels like O-line and D-line have been the emphasis for FSU in the transfer portal and trying to make a difference in the trenches.
Yeah, I think since Mike Norvell arrived, he knew that's where this roster needed to upgrade. I think across college football, we're seeing offensive lines and defensive lines. Those are the priority guys in the transfer portal. Yes, quarterback. But up front, everybody wants to grab somebody who's ahead from a strength and conditioning standpoint, somebody who's ahead from an experience standpoint. We heard Jeremiah Byers say today, yes, he played at UTEP. Yes, he was all conference, but he wanted to step up his level of competition to the ACC in order to get to the NFL. So it's the opportunity that's there for these guys to step up the competition, also the relationships that they're seeing as they travel around the country and pick wherever they want to go. they're finding a close relationship with not just Mike Norvell, but their position coaches. And very often that's Alex Atkins, it's John Papuchis, it's Odell Hagens. So Florida State is recruiting, identifying the right guy, the right fit. Norvell always uses that word fit, whether it's transfer portal or high school recruiting. And yeah, to Jerry's point, you are almost an NFL GM. You are using the draft, the high school guys, the free agency, the transfer portal guys, and you are making sure that the roster at each position really fits what you are trying to do for the upcoming year. And now you have this opportunity to really use the portal to solidify yourself. And like you said, Aria, to be competitive against Clemson, that's not something we could have said 3 years ago. Florida State is really right there to be competitive with anybody in the conference. And last year beat 2 SEC schools and Oklahoma, which is going to the SEC in a couple of years. So Florida State is right there.
Bob, you mentioned fit, and we keep talking about the portal, and we're learning more. We knew we would when it first started. And I was struck today by a couple of both Cypress and Byers weren't highly recruited coming out of high school. I think Byers said he only played one season of football in high school and only played the game 5 months, and nobody really took him. And so UTEP was a godsend for him to get an offer. And he was able to develop as a football player, a late bloomer, if you want to call him that, and maybe Fentrell as well. Cypress, last name. Maybe those two guys are an example of how the portal is a good thing. Again, another aspect of it, and that a guy that blooms late isn't stuck at a lower division. He can go prove himself for another 2 years at a school that will he fits, and then has an opportunity to play against better competition later. That struck me today.
Yeah,
because that wouldn't have been an opportunity for those guys pre-portal.
Yeah, I think you always had that chance to grad transfer, but now you're seeing a guy from UTEP move to Florida State. A guy like Braden Fisk from Western Michigan. If you're a group of 5 coach, you may not love this transfer portal because you're going to lose guys who are going up. Whereas, if you're a group of 5 coach, you're going to have to look at maybe FCS. Who can I grab out of the FCS to then strengthen my G5 roster? Everybody across college football is trying to figure out how do you best manage this kind of new thing. It's an animal. It's an animal with a couple of windows that have been put in, and now this portal window is truly closed. And we'll have another window coming up after spring football. But it can be a good thing if you have figured out how to manage it and manage it very well from a personality and fit standpoint. I think overall, that's where Mike Norvell gets a lot of praise, is he has figured out how to manage this very, very well.
The other thing that struck me today, I asked the question of 2 of them when they made their official visits to the other schools, or had spent time at other schools, like Holmes did at Penn State. How important were facilities to you? You keep hearing about facilities with high school kids that we're building all these. It's an arms race because it's so important in recruiting to have these fabulous facilities, right? But today continued a series of answers that we're getting from transfer kids that are saying the facilities they're not the most important thing. Did you notice that? They were more interested in the relationship with the coach. And I think that's maturity. That's, you've already had an experience in college, and you realize, man, the most important thing is that relationship with my coach.
I'm with you guys. Jerry, and I think too, that might be true. I think for transfers, especially because you've been through that recruiting process, I think they're looking for what's their best opportunity to get touches, to get on the field, and then get to the next level, right? That's the main reason you're transferring from one place to another, barring the culture being so bad at where you were previously. that you just need a fresh start, usually it's, a business decision. Trayshawn Ward, Malik McClain, those are two guys that I don't think necessarily wanted to leave Florida State. But those are two guys that felt like to maximize their potential for playing in the big leagues one day and playing on Sundays had to go somewhere else. Now, in terms of high school kids, Jerry, I don't think facilities matter anymore because everybody's got it. And I think high school kids would rather just have the NIL money in their back pocket. I think they would, if a kid's going to Bama for the facilities or going to Miami for the extra $2.5 million, I promise you we're going to start seeing kids go to Miami more. I mean, and I use Alabama like that they don't have NIL money and the facilities. So my point is that I just don't think facilities will matter anymore going forward. And I think FSU and Miami put together the football ops building because you couldn't be the only two schools in the ACC that don't have one. That had nothing to do with you think you really need it, in my opinion, because I think they could manage just fine without having a football operations building. Now, the kids, I think, just want the money. I really, at this point, think that high school kids would rather you put cash into their hands.
Well, I think you're speaking in generalizations, and that's okay. I mean, I get your point. Not everybody's alike, right? Some kids, it'll be the money that attracts them. Some girls, some guys, it'll be the girls on campus. I mean, everybody's a little bit different, but we talk in generalizations, and granted, I think with facilities, the key is you got to have a functional facility that allows the players to develop. And if you have a functional facility that can do that, you're good. I think some of the allure of news has always been recruiting, that you're going to put in a slide or a putt-putt course and a barber chair, and it's going to turn a kid's head. And I think that's somewhat true for high school kids. But to your point, other kids, they'd rather have some cash in their hand, And so I do think, all of it's important. It's just 5 years ago, everybody was putting emphasis on facilities for recruiting. And I just don't think it's that important from what I'm hearing from transfer students.
Yeah, I mean, I guess put ourselves in their shoes, right? If the choice was a cool facility that belonged to your team, or shoot, $500,000, I mean, I'd rather take the cash.
Let me tell you an old story. Many years ago, I used to visit University of Miami. I'd go down and speak to the Miami Seminole Booster Club, and when I would do that, I would stop by the University of Miami campus. And there was always somebody there that would give me a tour of their facility and let me watch practice. And they were always very gracious. And I remember taking a tour with a coach, Peterson. He had been at Nebraska. And their facilities were just absolutely horrible. I mean, their weight room looked like a East LA chop shop. It was like 4 garage doors that slid open. Indoor-outdoor carpet that was worn all the way through to the concrete. A few machines and a lot of free weights. On one side of the garage, they were playing rap music. On another side, country music, just out of boom boxes. I mean, it was very primitive. And I asked the Peterson, I said, how do you recruit guys here? And he said, we tell them, if you want the best dormitory, go to Florida State. Burt Reynolds Hall can't be beat. If you want the best weight room, go to Nebraska. You can't be beat. If you want it easy, go to Florida. They'll make it easy on you. But if you want to win championships, it can all be done right here in this weight room. Look at the trophy case. Look at the rings. They de-emphasize facilities. They emphasize work. And they did things like when a kid would fly into the Miami International Airport, they'd have him take a cab. And what they were trying to do was separate the men from the boys. You know, if you want it bad enough, you can do it right here. And Peterson told me when you get back to Tallahassee, ask Mickey Andrews about trying to cull. You know, in your evaluation process, the hardest part is culling the cowards. You know, culling the guys who want it easy. And I don't know. I find that's why I guess I was struck by the mature conversations with Byers in particular. I mean, here's a guy that, you know, has won a conference award, and he's looking for a challenge. He's looking for work. And I think that's what the portal really gives you, that opportunity.
It has to, right? Yeah.
To find those guys.
Yeah. And I mean, Cypress and Byers are going to be immediate impact guys, right? And so, you know, Cypress is probably a day one starter. Byers is, you know, got a good shot to be a starter. There was some news earlier today that, you know, Dimitri Emmanuel might be coming back to Florida State, and that he's expected to get a waiver. So that's pretty exciting for the Noles. It would be a 7th year for Dimitri, who started, you know, his career in Charlotte and knows Alex Atkins well. But that could be big for Florida State, is adding another piece to the trenches that you thought you may or may not have had going into 2023.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, I think we always kind of looked at the numbers on the offensive line and lamented the lack of quantity, but also the lack of quality. Now we're looking at the numbers going, wow, there's a lot of guys. There's a lot of guys with experience. How are they going to figure all this out? It's a good problem for Alex Atkins to have. That's a good thing, to figure out who's a guard, who's a tackle. We know who the centers are, obviously, with Morris Smith and all that. But, yeah, I mean, Alex Atkins gets to figure this out. I thought Byers had a really good quote in the interviews today. He basically said, Coach Atkins said during one of the practices, if you're not working hard, if you're not showing it day after day, I'm going to put you on the scout team. That's tough love. That's good tough love, because it shows the competition is so good, and that's what these guys are going to face every day. If you're good, you're going to play. If you're pretty good, you know, second team, and if you're not, there's a spot for you in the scout team. But he's going to figure it out. That's a good problem to have, I think.
Jerry, between Roddick and Byers and Emmanuel and Jones and all the guys that they brought in, right, from the portal, you got to like Florida State's depth in the offensive line.
Boy, what a difference from 2 years ago. Holy moly. You know, a couple of years ago, we had 7 guys that we were trying to play 5. Now you've got, you know, a healthy number between 15 and 20 is where you should be. And I think they're there now. There's a lot of potential. I mean, with Byers, he was saying they're going to try to work him at right tackle and right guard, Emmanuel being at right guard right now. And so there's going to be a lot of competition. I mean, spring ought to be fun.
Yeah, and not to mention Roddick can cross train at center potentially, where he was a captain at Colorado. So that's a pretty good get for Florida State. And I think it just allows that flexibility, like you're mentioning, the ability to play different spots and cross train these guys to where, you know how it goes in a regular season. Guys are going to drop. It happens. People get hurt. You're going to have guys missing a game or two, or have to miss, you know, at best case, a series or two or a half. And having that depth is so important when you're talking about the difference between an 8-win season and the difference between a 10 or 11-win season. It's usually the teams that are the healthiest, right? Or have the depth to overcome the grind of a season.
Well, there's no doubt about that. If you look back to our 93, 99, and 2013 championship, they had that in common. There were very few, if any, injuries on the offensive line in those 3 seasons. So you're not only are you got your best 5 in the game, but they're building continuity, and that's really helpful. And the other thing I would say about the cross training is, which is what Atkins does, and he'll do that with Byers, is if you settle in at right tackle, but you know what the right guard assignments are, you're a better football player. just for having that empathy and really understanding fits, so that if something odd happens in a game, which it does, you instinctively know what the guard's going to do because you've played it. You know, so I think that's the real benefit of it.
Yeah, and so guys, I think we should talk a little bit about some uniform changes real quick. I know I mentioned Akeem Dent went from 27 to number 1, but a couple of notable ones: Pat Payton, 56 to 11. Get him a little number there that allows him to, I think, ball out. Is it Jermaine Johnson's old number, if I remember correctly, 11. So big shoes to fill. But Pat Payton has shown some flashes, and then DJ Lundy, linebacker, going from 46 to number 10. And so a lot of big news in the roster this morning, and we'll have more football coverage really all spring long. I think we're so excited. Jerry's starting to hear some rumblings maybe of when that spring game may be, but hopefully mid-April they're shooting for. And we were talking about this, you and I believe like last week. This spring game has a chance to have a special attendance and some of the most hype surrounding the program in nearly a decade.
No doubt about it. I think a goal of hitting 45,000 for that game is realistic. And I'm sure Jason Denard and athletics, they'll put some money behind a Friday night block party and doing some things to encourage attendance. I'm looking forward to it. Osceola is bound to do something that weekend.
I see the smile on your face.
Party, huh?
Will there be drinks involved? I think that's what everybody wants to know.
That's of course.
That's a given, huh?
It's a given.
All right. Well, football talk pretty good for today. So just to recap, we talked about uniform changes, roster updates, and of course, Byers, Holmes. We didn't talk a whole lot about Caziah Holmes, the transfer from Penn State, who actually was here for much of the fall, but was on the scout team. Was told he was the offensive MVP for the scout team this year. So maybe part of the reason why, Treshaun Ward leaving, Florida State was comfortable with it. More so than if they didn't have what they had in the backfield. Maybe Holmes comes in, a former top 200 recruit, and he plays well for the Seminoles. Bob, Jerry, there should be a couple more transfers talking with the media this week. Am I correct?
I think there's 4 on Thursday, and they're going to do more next week. Yep.
Yep. I say this about Holmes. He's a thick back. When you look at him, he's got some meat on his bones. He's a little bit bigger version of Trey Benson. We got to see some of them on the scout team, but I would be interested to see him running with the 1s and 2s to see what he brings to the table. He likened himself to Benson in the interview today. Again, there's a maturity about these transfers that is really good to see. And Bob, I don't know about your take, but I've been struck over the course of the interviews that we've done with these players is that there's a certain personality that's common in each of them. We talk about culture and fit. It comes across in the interviews that they have things in common.
I think they all have a bit of a chip on their shoulder. They all like to have fun, but they're very businesslike. I think that theme has very much carried. I don't know what to expect from Caziah Holmes. I mean, it's hard to gauge a scout team running back, what he showed us in the fall. The guy we all love watching in practice is Rodney Hill. If you are buying stock in somebody at the running back position, buy stock now and buy a lot of it in Rodney Hill. Because whether it's offense, whether it's maybe punt return, likely kick return, a guy like Rodney Hill has got a skill set that you've got to get out there on the football field. That's a guy we really like.
Yeah, very much so.
Cool. Well, from the gridiron to the hardwood, how about we talk a little bit of men's hoops? Because haven't had a whole lot of performances like the one the Noles had last night in South Bend. The Noles do sweep the Irish this season, and The game, the first time we played Notre Dame, it was a nail biter down to the wire. Notre Dame, turned over the basketball pretty much at the buzzer. And this one, FSU, I mean, they were up something like 30-7, if I saw correctly. It was a complete blowout from the beginning. Hot start, hot shooting. And then, Notre Dame made its runs, made it interesting a couple times, cutting the lead down to 6 to 8 points. But I thought Florida State showed a lot of maturity. And Bob Miller returned from tonsillitis. And Bob, we've talked to Ham a little bit about having as many players available so that they're distributing minutes a little more evenly. And it seemed like last night it helped FSU quite a bit in the win.
Yeah, they've been playing a couple of these games at 8 guys, and that's just crazy because you never think of a Florida State team only using 8. They played 10, if I'm looking at it right, Wednesday night. That helps a lot. This isn't sustainable, and Hamilton knows it's not sustainable to have Darren Green, Matt Cleveland go 35, almost 40 minutes all these games. You're just going to wear guys out, and by necessity, you might have to do it. But also, we're seeing Chandler Jackson, who's really developing, and his thumb injury is in the rearview mirror. We're seeing Deontay Green get in there a little bit. It's going to be a long recovery for him with that knee injury. Baba Miller, I know you're going to have to take some of the bad with the overwhelming positives, that length and athleticism. Baba doesn't look in sync yet, but he's only played 2 games. We have to really realize he is going to ramp up to something much, much better than what we're seeing right now. But just these quality minutes and keeping guys somewhat rested is going to be critical because there's a lot of potentially close games there. We don't expect Florida State to win a ton of games the rest of the way, but can they be competitive? Can they fight? Can the younger guys develop? I think these are storylines that really will be watching just how this team develops down the stretch.
Yeah, I agree completely. Baba played 18 minutes, guys, by the way, last night. So that's big to get him back into basketball shape. And you can see some of the different things he does. He hit a backdoor cut last night, reverse layup at 6'11", and I was in awe. On another play, he attacked the rim, body control for a guy that big, and hit a floater through some contact, and then grabbed 6 rebounds as well. So they've been missing the element that Baba can give them. And yeah, they're 6-13 right now, something like that. Finally got back to 500 in the ACC and conference play. This would be pretty impressive if FSU, I think, finishes conference play with a 500 record, right? If they can go 10-10, that shows something in this conference and what they were able to do in the second half of the year. But Jerry, Coach Ham's teams, they're going to keep fighting. They have no quit to them. Whether they have personnel issues or not, those guys will keep going.
So, hey, let me change it to women's basketball for a minute.
You definitely.
We want your expert analysis on what Brooke's getting done over there.
Wow. She's been incredible, hasn't she? I mean, 16-4. You've got one of the best players in the country that you brought in, and a bunch of transfers. We talk about football and the transfer portal. Basketball's done that as well. And they brought in 4 or 5 players that have made a difference. And so they play Virginia Thursday night at 7, and Florida State's looking to maybe host, in women's basketball, the top 16 teams. So the top 4 seeds, 4 seed to 1 seed all get to host the first 2 rounds of the NCAA tournament. So that would be a big feather in FSU's cap if they can do that. So women's doing well, men's hoping for the best. Bob, I do want to touch on one thing that's really impressed me too with the guys. Matt Cleveland's got 8 straight double-doubles, and it hasn't been seen since 1970-71 season when Reggie Royals did it. By the way, excellent name, Reggie Royals. That's a
player.
Yeah, very well, Jerry. I mean, that's about the time Florida State made it, the national title game. Am I right?
Right.
A couple of years after that against UCLA.
It was, that time frame. Exactly.
Yeah. So Cleveland's been playing really well. Bob, it's been cool to see, I think, in an otherwise struggle of a year, to watch Matt develop into a true NBA caliber player. He has taken that next step.
Yeah, I think it's been maybe a slow progression for him because he will even admit his jump shot in high school was not very good. He had to really work on that. He's really had to work on his game. And we've seen a 2.0 version of Matthew Cleveland, not just this year, but in these last 8 games. when you lose Cam Fletcher, you lost that energy guy, that guy who was going to chase down some rebounds and be a good defensive player. We've seen Matthew Cleveland be much more aggressive here. I think it's been very much by necessity, but I think credit goes to him for realizing that he has to be that guy for Florida State. I think maybe some other guys around him will say, well, if Matthew can do something that rebounding, that wasn't something that he had to do initially going into the year, well, maybe they'll start to look at their game and their skill set. Well, what can I do for this team? How can I develop myself a little bit more? I think that kind of unspoken leadership can maybe go a long way. We'll see. But I think it's really remarkable what Matthew's done. I think at one point last night he had 2 points and 10 rebounds. It was maybe early on. So you can see how in bunches he can be very, very productive as far as just, building the points or building the rebounds too.
Yeah, I think in what's been, again, a tough season for Florida State, you can talk to anybody there. They're not, it's not what's expected around that program. It's not what they're used to. So many injuries, so much adversity. You don't want to lose sight of the fact of the silver linings of the season. Matt Cleveland has been one. Seeing Darren Green shoot the way that he has and play at that level, I think he would be getting praised more if Florida State was having one of its normal seasons. The outstanding transfer from UCF. And then I've really been impressed with Jalen Worley over the last month or so. He's starting to become a solid basketball player, a point guard that I think is starting to become more comfortable as well in his role. 6'5", big kid, long arms, and we're starting to see him develop too. He had a nice night against Notre Dame. So the fellows play, I believe, this weekend at Pitt, which is not an easy place to play. The Zoo will be rocking, as they call it, their student section. And, hey, if the Noles can win 2 games in a row, you start talking about momentum. And at this point, I think for Florida State, you're looking for streaks and you're looking for trends in what has otherwise been a forgettable season. And I think commend Leonard Hamilton. I commend that staff, and I commend the kids. Right, they've continued to fight. They haven't thrown in the towel, and continue to do that. And I think you'll still have some support from the fans as we get closer and closer to the thick of ACC season and getting moving forward. But great job, guys. I think it's a really good Seminole Sidelines show for this Wednesday afternoon. We'll have one more on Friday. We hope you join us. It should be a lot of fun. And again, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Please subscribe to the Osceola.com. We're also available to listen to this podcast on Spotify, on Apple, on Google, and continue to support the Noles. We appreciate you. And until we talk to you on Friday, Bob Ferranti, Jerry Kutz, Arya Masudi, and this has been Seminole Sidelines.